Good day, everyone. First of all, thank you very much, CBIE, and more specifically, Kimberly, for this invitation. And I also want to say hello to Tina, who will also be presenting with me during this webinar. My name is Krista Morrison, and I work as a digital pedagogy specialist at McMaster University. And before that, I specialized in new media, more specifically multimedia production. I was teaching in journalism and business programs in the GTA, and I also did training in the form of boot camps and workshops for working journalists in Canada and abroad. But this is me and my home office this week. Please excuse if my voice does not come through very well because I've overexhausted my vocal cords and my eyes and my right wrist in terms of supporting faculty online and giving training from my laptop. But anyway, from my desk to yours, this is me, and I hope you're doing well, you're healthy, and want to say kudos if you are one of the faculty who had to move from on-campus to online learning really swiftly, and to all of those who have supported you. So in this webinar, I would like to explore the steps we took over the last week or two and think a bit more about where we are right now. And then maybe plan where we could go and where we would like to go. So I would like to do that under three topics. First of all, looking at online learning spaces, then the technologies that enable us to come up with strategies and provide us with tools to teach more inclusively in online learning spaces, and then thinking about a roadmap for where we would like to go and where we can go in terms of teaching more inclusively. So if we think about where we are right now, I think, it looks so different from where we were a week or two ago, where students could get together and work on group projects in person, where they could come to campus and work in labs and get to their professors for office hours, etc. I read this good article in the Higher Education Chronicle this morning, and I really like the principles this professor came up with, because really none of us signed up for this, and it looks very different from what we were expected to do on campus and the way we were preparing our lessons and assessments for our students. But at the end of the day, we are all humans, and we all feel the most settled and happy when we keep ourselves busy with things that we really believe adds meaning to our life, and when we build meaningful relationships. And I think that is what we should focus on right now. This was so typical when I saw this on social media, but it really reminds me as well about all the major changes that students very swiftly had to go through. And we know that this age group, especially undergraduate students, are in a developmental phase of their lives where, when they are faced with uncertainty, they would like to turn to their friends in person. And this is another thing they can't do. So I think it's really important to take into account the cognitive load of all the news and all the change, and also, the mental health challenges this brings. I think of this period of time of learning 24/7 and having multi-access to learning. And I think we can summarize it in two words, and that is connection and also community. We see how people are pulling together to come up with solutions and with ways of doing things and doing it fast and doing it well. Being in one space with other people, working on things, discussing things together, really start bringing that sense of community. I want to share a few of these online learning collaborative spaces that are most familiar to me. Cisco WebEx Teams is a platform that I've been using for the last two and a half years. And this is just an example of how a course was structured and how students discussed each other's work. It's a really great platform for when you want to work on documents together or brainstorm on a whiteboard. And it's really easy to schedule the synchronous meetings. Microsoft Teams is another platform that are similar. What I like a lot about Microsoft Teams is all the inclusive features that it provides us with, and I'll stand still and point out a few of those later on. But what I would like to focus on here is that we can add tabs to the top of a team, and that tab can be any website, which means that you can integrate your LMS into the team space here. When you click on it, you will be prompted to sign in with your user ID and password, but it will open within the team here. You don't have to go out of the team to access any other website. And you can do the same with Trello if students use that for project work, or any other web where they work in a virtual lab, etc. Echo 360 is a really impressive video-based active learning platform where a lot of really good learning can happen. Students can flag when they find things confusing. One of those important things when we think about metacognition is to know when you don't understand something, and that you can actually flag it and follow up and find out more about it and try and get to a better understanding of it. It also provides us with features similar to iClicker in a classroom, where you have student response questions that you can add to a presentation. So you can include multiple choice, numerical questions, an image, or any one of, I think, 2-3 other types of questions, which you can use for formative assessment, or just to give students an opportunity to reflect on the information you've shared. So it's easy to space the presentation with these activity slides. All the videos, whether you upload them as narrated slideshows or personal messages to your students, explainer videos, or whether you capture a lecture, comes with full transcripts. I'm sure all of you are making use of a learning management system, an LMS. In our case, what I do like is the feature to create an activity feed on the home page, and where it's easy in times like this to make announcements, and students can come and comment right there in that activity feed, and you can share multiple media. The other feature we have, which is, I think, very neat, is that we have a Kaltura integration, which allow us to capture video right from within the learning management system. So that can also be, once again, like a personal message to your students, or explainer video, or a capture of your desktop. Another tool that I like a lot is Loom, and you can do the same. You can record your desktop, and you have the option to have your own have your face in a little circle somewhere on the screen. And at the end, when you share it, those who get the link and watch the video can respond to different parts in the video with emoticons. Sorry, you can also annotate on the screencast that you do. Yeah, that's also very handy, very similar to Snagit. Flipgrid is a video platform where students can upload videos from their mobile devices. It can be selfie videos or any other kind of video up to 5 minutes. It's a great platform to use to get students to share something more personal, what their study corners look like at home at this point, or in the beginning of a course, I like to recommend this as an introduction activity where they say their names out loud and we can hear how to pronounce it and why they maybe decided to take the course. So now that we have an idea of what it looked like, all these online learning spaces that we probably started using over the last week or two exclusively, I think we should also start thinking about where we would really like to be. What does the sort of ideal learning space look like that you would like to make use of, you and your students, where you can effectively communicate and collaborate on learning? And I think, it's important to go back to research that shows that it's not only about being engaged or present, but it's really about how you interact and participate. And the three most important aspects of that is when students interact, when students and their instructors interact, more specifically getting feedback quite fast, and good feedback as well. And that's where technologies like Crowdmark also play a big role. And then also the interaction between the student and content. And I think this is a huge opportunity for us when we make use of digital learning spaces, because we can make use of a whole lot of multiple media and interactive media. And, as we are going into the future and we're going to add different kinds of information like augmented reality, this is only an area that will develop more and more. Over the weekend, I had a look at this book again, How People Learn, Brain-Mind Experience in School. It was updated, I think, 4 years ago, if I'm not mistaken. But anyway, when I thought about, what the learning spaces look like that we are using over this last week, I realized that collaboration and communication in groups is paramount to what we do, and it gives us the opportunity to think about how network-based communities of learners can be successful. And I want to highlight these 3 points, that it can be more successful in terms of the learning we do when communication happen within groups and not only one-on-one, when goals and tasks are well articulated, and when there is an explicit effort to facilitate group interaction. So these are things we need to make possible through our teaching strategies. It's not things that will just happen because we make use of collaborative spaces. Throughout my presentation, I've included links. So this paper on the right-hand side, with the summary of community of learning papers, is a link to more research, very recent research. So you can go and read up more about that. But I think what I also wanted to highlight is that we are really building relationships when we engage with other people in spaces like online learning spaces. And in this instance, it really helps if it's organized dialogues and if we make use of multiple media. Um, the advantages of dialogue-based learning are plentiful. We know that we can provide more rich intellectual context when we discuss things and have two-way conversations and can ask questions and go a bit deeper. It gives multiple opportunities to the participants to improve their understanding of concepts, and they become personally involved in explaining how they understand new concepts and translating that knowledge to, an audience and also their own ideas. Then the term COIL, collaborative online international or intercultural learning, is one that refers to the platforms and spaces like linker education and class-to-class education, where we can collaborate with other universities around the world and provide opportunities for our students to collaborate with students, from different cultures. And what I like a lot about class-to-class is also the activities that they provide to choose from. There's really a rich and a structured choice. And this reminds me of Tina's platform as well. Very structured, a clear learning journey for the students. I like that. In terms of inclusivity, I think this image helps us to think about the fact that, giving all learners equal access to all parts of the learning that happen, whether that's the discussion in the class or a presentation or lab work or group work, we don't really have to expect people to ask for extra steps to be put in place to give them that opportunity. We can merely take the fence away, and we have more than enough technologies today that enable us to do so. So how do we invite learners in? How do we invite learners in when we make use of online learning spaces? I think one of the important aspects of communicating and sharing information on digital platforms have to draw our attention to how we communicate and collaborate, not only when we make use of technology, but in terms of Dr. Mary Donohue's research, because of the technologies that we make use of. And her research found that every generation, based on the technologies that they grow up with and use, learn differently. They respond differently when we communicate. They collaborate differently. So I definitely think this is an area where we can learn more and apply that to make communication and collaboration better in online learning spaces. The features of Microsoft Teams that I want to highlight is the fact that all their recorded synchronous meetings come with transcriptions, and the transcriptions are searchable. And we also have the ability to turn on live captions. And with the live captions, and also in PowerPoint, you have a choice to choose to which language you would like to translate that. So I can do a presentation in English, but have my live captions appear in Japanese. But also the chats within Microsoft Teams, the text chats, we can translate that. So every learner who who is not a English speaker can translate that into their own first language, which I've done here to my home language, Afrikaans. How do we give instructors access to these online learning spaces? I truly believe we fall short in recognizing the effort and time it takes to learn this new landscape and to learn to communicate well in this new landscape. And I just want to say I take my hat off to all of you who so quickly had to start communicating in digital means that you maybe not before communicated with. Research also shows us that when we focus on building communities of learning, like we really intuitively do when we get together in these collaborative spaces, the most important part of this is the teacher's presence, and I think it is really important to take note of this and to think about the teacher-student ratio, because we cannot do good teaching and allow good learning to happen if we have hundreds, thousands or more students and only one teacher. The teacher is really important in terms of the learning that happens in online learning spaces. And then one of the other things I want to stand still with is the fact that I think we need to give equal access and be more flexible in how we allow students to get access to learning that happens. So student in any situation, commuting, having family responsibilities, having to work certain hours that can't be in class, I think it's within our ability to record lectures and make that available. I try to think about where and how do we get together, when do we get together, and how do we think about this when we start thinking about a course in terms of course design or going forward? How do we choose whether we should meet with our students synchronously or asynchronously? So I just tried to come up with, what the purpose would be. And maybe a matrix like this can help you think through where you would like to meet with your students going forward. I like this framework that outlines how we can engage students more online. It's a group of professors in Australia who did this literature study of online engagement, and they highlighted these 5 areas. What I usually recommend is that you go through each of these areas and make a list of how you can engage your students in the learning spaces that you make use of, and in terms of your course content and your students. So now that we know where we are and where we can be, and that we can teach more inclusively if we make use of these digital learning spaces and tools at our disposal, how do we get there? And I do not suggest that you just dive in. I think if we take it step by step and we first just put a foot in the water, and from there on add more and more of these features, we can get to a place where we could be and maybe want to be. One of the other tips in this time is to try and keep things short and simple. I like to think of this as, leaning on your inner journalist. Just edit everything that's not necessary. Dr. Tony Bates also recommended that we do not post videos of more than 15 to 20 minutes when we want students to, make use of it for learning. And excuse me, if you click on his name, you will get to his online textbook, and it's filled with research and really practical tips. I found this article online, so another thing that we would have to do if we want to get to where we want to be in terms of the learning environment that we are making use of now is that we're going to have to redesign activities. And this slideshow recommend a few ideas in terms of technologies and techniques. What else can we do and can help us to get to where we want to be? I think for instructors and students, one of the most important things we have to stand still at this point is metacognition. We really need to self-assess where we are, what our skills are, what our competences are, and where we would like that to be. We have to learn to self-educate, to innovate, to improve, to practice, practice, practice. And I found these assessment / inventory lists online and a lot of strategies to help instructors and students learn more about how they learn in these online learning spaces. And I would like to encourage you to explore all these links. In terms of digital competencies, this framework was developed by the European Commission, and basically what they did is they looked at what kind of competencies learners should have by the time they leave higher education to be ready for the job market, and based on that, what kind of competencies should educators in higher education have to help students reach that? And I'm sure that if you start reading through this list from number 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, you will realize that a lot of these keywords and key competencies are actually competencies that we needed desperately over the last week and two. And of course, whenever we are engaged with students. When we think about learning in online learning spaces, we know we have the students, we have the instructors, we have the platform, that spaces, but the way we communicate the learning content is through multimedia. And I think if you look at technology adoption, usually they say if technology provides us with ease of use, then people will use it and they will discover the usability. But I think this current situation forced us to start using technologies. And I think if we persevere, we will find the ease of use and those who provides us with ease of use. And we will, in the process, discover the usability of these online learning spaces and the tools we can use. I also think that multimedia help us to achieve universal design for learning. And on the right-hand side of the screen, I've shared research with you in terms of the use of multiple media in synchronous learning environments. And if you click on that link as well, it will open up to that research. And in terms of inclusive teaching, we have all the technologies available to us today to make teaching more inclusive. If you click on that link, it will take you to an article that not only focus on technology, but on a lot of teaching strategies and pedagogy to make teaching more inclusive. I've shared this list of multimedia tools with numerous professors over the last 10 days, and many of them came back to me and wanted to discuss more. So these are tools that are mostly free to use and really easy to use. So if you are interested in experimenting with different kinds of media that you want to create for digital platforms, maybe this is something that you can find useful. The column for examples, this is the way I think we learn a new language really well and fast, is if we not only, learn how to construct in this language, which in this case I would say is multimedia or digital communication, but if we look at examples, it really helps us to get to the kind of communication that we would like to create. And it's good inspiration as well. So I hope all these ideas help you think a bit more about where we are right now, how to get from where we are to where we really could be in terms of quality, in terms of evaluating what we have done, what we have learned, and what we would like to achieve in these learning spaces going forward. So thank you very much for listening, and please connect with me. I love learning from others. And once again, Kimberly, thank you very much. Tina, thank you for the great work you do as well. And it was great meeting all of you and connecting with you. Thank you. Bye.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Tina Bax. Yesterday's CBIE webinar did not go as planned, unfortunately. So Krista and I have agreed to narrate and record our comments and what we had to share so that it can be shared with a wider audience and maybe last a little longer as well. You'll be able to access the material at any time, just like you can with online learning. It's a little bit dark. I know a lot of us who are working in online education right now and web-based delivery are working some longer hours. And of course, the nice thing about it being light out later is it's a little bit dark in the morning. So two of the things I know that Krista was going to talk about were inclusivity and how tech can really enhance the learning. And I'm going to borrow from the CultureWorks vision for online learning that my colleague Meredith McGregor developed and touch on those 2 points. And then I'm going to show you an example of how this is working in classrooms. Certainly, we've got a couple of university and college partners that are using this under their own label. And that might be something that you find maybe something that you might want to consider looking ahead to September enrollment, or even some of the summer programs, and mitigating those kinds of losses, because this can be up and running in about 24 hours. So I know that Krista was going to talk about inclusivity, right? So community building to stimulate and sustain communication. I hope that you see some of that in the examples that we're about to show you. Certainly ongoing feedback. You'll see teacher to student, student to teacher. You'll also see student to student. Something really important though is we have to try and build these sessions in a way with web-based delivery that we don't often have to do in the classroom. Same with student-led discussions. We try and build that in as part of the program. And I'll recap some best practices at the end of this tiny example as well. Certainly, you'll see from these examples that we feel tech really enhances and facilitates the learning opportunities for the students. It lets them control their interaction with the content. So small groups, student-led discussions, but also the timing of when they are accessing the material, when they're revisiting the material, really gives them that power, and I think then extends our reach as teachers. Certainly can add convenience, but the catch is, of course, we have to be comfortable, right, in order to deliver our lessons or a presentation or anything really well. And there's so much coming at us right now, so many free platforms or resources or textbooks or messaging services. That's not a bad thing either, but it's a really difficult time to be exploring new things. So Krista has suggested a curated list of tools and a given framework or vision for using them as well, which I hope you found extremely helpful. We touched base before, and I know some of the things she was going to talk about, so I'm looking forward to seeing the full presentation as well. I'm going to play you 2 clips now. They're about 30 seconds each, and I'm going to show you how the program presents itself with students, and then I'll share the background components so you can see how it simply fits together. Okay, this is a language pathway class, 2 different classes, and I think it's a relevant example right now, not just for the English language learners, English language learner department members that might be part of the group or watching this later, but for institutions looking to mitigate expected enrollment drops in September or summer short-term programming, okay? Language done online in web-based format can certainly work. We know that it does work. We launched this in 2019, started developing it in 2014, but 100% of the students in the inaugural class received or scored increased English test marks on their standardized tests from their high school. So let me play you these 2 clips and then I'll come right back. Okay.
Okay, so question 1. A clause is a group of words including a noun and adjective, a group of words that contains a subject and a verb, a group of words that explains the meaning of a word, or a full sentence. Full sentence. Number 4? No. An independent clause is a full sentence. And yeah. Independent clause, yeah. But what's a clause generally?
A group of words that explains the meaning of a word.
No, that's a definition.
Oh, the poor student. Okay, let's have a look here. I've got one more clip for you. You'll see Karen's class here.
We're going to, if you remember yesterday, we talked about the adjectives and the adverbs, and I said today we were going to do a big exercise where you come and bring those and verbs and nouns all together. So what we have here is I'm going to break you into 3 groups. So there's a group 1, a group 2, and a group 3. In your group, you are going to write 10 sentences together on this slide. And each sentence must have at least 1 noun, 1 verb, 1 adjective, and 1 adverb.
We need 2 sentences anymore. Yes. Let me think.
I love that. Let me think. So as I said, we started developing this in 2014. My school is called CultureWorks. We've been hosted on campus at King's, Brescia, from time to time on the main campus at Western as well. And Carleton certainly, and these are the partners that we work with that have conditional admission from our program into there. So they offer the conditional admission to the students. So that's where we live and who we work with, although that's certainly broadening in the light of everyone going to online. And I think, as I said, a lot of partners across the country are looking at September numbers and wondering how can we mitigate that? Well, here's a solution to help keep some of these students on the pathway. Very simple. The program has these 3 components. So Canvas, G Drive, and Zoom. I understand that D2L also offers a solution that's come a long way since the last time I looked at it. I was in a demo yesterday with one of the colleges and looks quite good as well. You can use either one for this program and we can get it up and running in about 24 hours. Might take 2 days if we're switching over to a different system. So we use Canvas. It hosts all of the asynchronous material and all of the assessment. So all the static material is in Canvas. Then we have G Drive, which is where the lesson plans live. And we have Zoom, which is the platform we use for daily streaming. It's the platform that we're using now, okay? Every course, so it's a 7-level course, there's a course module overview with these contents. So you have a description of the course, the hours, the grading system, policies, all the course assessments, in-class activities, the pacing guide, right? So I think the important thing about this is that it's not just an asynchronous repository of data, right? Nor is it just a conversation class on Zoom. It's driven by a set of objectives, just like a traditional course would be. This is what it looks like with us, module 1. So there'd be 8 of these in every 7 level. Okay. You'll notice the activities are all nicely linked. You don't need that right at the beginning. Everybody will go through a bumpy and ugly stage with this. As long as you have the material somewhere and can link it or share it with the students, that's what you need. Okay. It's a couple of sample lesson plans. And my hope today is that if you are looking for a solution, then we're happy to share some of this material with you. There'll be a follow-up email at the end of this little deck, and you can send us an email. We'll send you the full module. So we'll send you all 8 weeks so you can see what a typical level looks like for us. And we'll send you some sample lesson plans so you can see how it's linked. Not that anybody needs help teaching, we're all professionals, but I think it's interesting sometimes to, as you're finding your way in an unknown environment, to see how somebody else has put it together is sometimes helpful. These students would have been level 3, so I included the proficiency placement chart here that we use, so you can see where they might fall and in your levels as well. Okay, so wrapping up here, I'm going to borrow again from Meredith McGregor's vision for online learning that she wrote for our program. Just some best practices here, certainly looking at activities that promote collaboration, which we usually do in a language classroom anyway, activities that promote student-to-student engagement, but multimodal instruction is really important for students as well, right? So not always using the same kind of activity or the same kind of medium for instruction. Emphasis on visual support, ELL teachers know that. Reiteration of instructions, more check-ins than a regular class, certainly. One-on-one built in, so nothing too out of the ordinary there, except building in the one-on-one conversations I found was really important. And then expecting the silences, of course, especially with online, I found there were quite a few more silences when I first started teaching this. So anyone wanting a sample, as I said, of the entire curricular overview or the lesson plans, or if you have any questions at all, please reach out to us. Certainly don't want this to come across as a pitch. Everybody's got more work than they could handle right now, but we are here to serve. So if we can help you in any way, please do reach out to us. And I just wanted to thank you, Krista, for sharing your expertise, and also CBIE for at least trying to bring us together. Thanks very much, guys. And I'm going to end now, and you've got our contact information. If we can do anything for you, please let us know. Thanks.